Few things are harder than the mission of raising your kids. At the Dad Project, we get experienced dads to reveal what's worked for them, offering practical, time-tested advice. Being a successful dad is tough, and we're here to help you get it done. Welcome to the Dad Project.
In this episode of the Dad Project, Jim Tierney talks about teaching kids how to act with prudence. Jim is co-founder of the Dad Project. He and his wife have 9 children.
Prudence is that virtue that leads us to seek the best way of reaching any good end. Now, I want to state from the outset that this is a virtue, the image of which I think we really need to rehabilitate so that people understand it. You know, out of misunderstanding, people conjure up ideas that prudence is somehow fearful, shrinking, even miserly, or commonly people think that it means overly cautious. Well, prudence can lead us to take a cautious path when caution is called for, but it's not unduly cautious without consideration of what's needed. You know, a friend and I were recently talking, and he pointed out that maybe the nail in the coffin of prudence might have been Dana Carvey's caricature of U.S. President George H.W. Bush on Saturday Night Live, in which he got laughs with his impression of the former president, relying on the line, "Wouldn't be prudent." All right, maybe it's clear the one reason I haven't been invited to be on the cast of SNL, but I think my friend was really onto something. Prudence could be called practical wisdom. Again, it's choosing the best means. So when fatherly decisiveness is called for, we want to be able to draw on a deep well of prudence, which we've filled up through forming ourselves to grow in this virtue. Ever heard of the 4 cardinal virtues? They were mentioned in an earlier talk in this series. They're spelled out differently at different points in history and in different religious traditions, but they certainly go back at least as far as the ancient Greek philosopher Plato, who listed them as prudence, courage, temperance, and justice. Christian traditions list prudence, justice, temperance, and fortitude. Now, the fact that both of these lists put prudence first isn't a coincidence. Prudence is a virtue that precedes other virtues and on which other virtues depend. The Polish scholar Karol Wojtyła wrote, quote, "The prudent man who strives for everything that is really good endeavors to measure everything, every situation, and his whole activity according to the yardstick of moral good." So a prudent man is not one who, as is often meant, is able to wrangle things in life and draw the greatest profit from it, but one who is able to construct his whole life according to the voice of upright conscience and according to the requirements of sound morality, end quote. So if I'm going to weigh the moral good in every situation, where do I start? And how do I teach my children to do it? After all, a recurring theme that has come up in previous talks in this series is that if I want my children to demonstrate virtues, I have to live them myself. So I think the first step is to acknowledge our own limitations and that we probably can't do this alone. We need to be humble. None of us has mastered himself, and so we all need help. This can come from a mentor, a friend who really has it together, from books on being a successful father, even in earnest prayer if you're a person of faith. You know, I mentioned books on fatherhood, and I've also found that biographies of great leaders in politics, in business, and military can provide a lot of insight that helps me as a dad. I can see if and how historical figures have chosen the moral good in decisions that they faced, and this helps me further develop my own framework for sizing up situations and making decisions. Next, I'll mention what I'll call ongoing formation. These are the daily habits that I try to practice in order to stay on the straight and narrow path. So for instance, a friend once introduced me to the habits of 1, not hitting the snooze bar, and 2, waking up each day and saying out loud, "I will serve." This is a reminder from the first moment of my day that I don't have time to lie in bed, that I need to get started on the service that I'm called to carry out every day. My family's depending on it. In addition to my professional work, I try to spend some time reading every day. That's part of my ongoing formation. I incorporate prayer into my daily routine. Others might favor another form of meditation, but I find that it helps me clear my mind of the noise and focus on my most important priorities. And the list goes on. I have a number of daily practices that I won't rattle off here, but you can email us through the podcast if you want more detail. In summary, though, I find that a daily routine that reinforces good habits is pretty invaluable. So, what are some ways that we can help our children learn to exercise prudence? First and foremost is just the way we carry out our role as a father. One thing I like to do is discuss big decisions with the family. So for instance, I came to a decision point on a career opportunity that I had, and at the family dinner table, I brought up this opportunity to the family. So we went around the table and everyone had the chance to weigh in with what they thought the pros and cons were about this particular opportunity. So starting with my wife and then going on down the line through the kids. I pointed out that I might have to spend longer days at the office. There would be some times that I probably wouldn't be able to get home for dinner every night, whereas I had been able to do that in some previous roles that I had held. Maybe there would be some sporting events that I would miss. And so everybody in the family had the chance to weigh in on that. I was pretty impressed with the kids who said, "Dad, we think this is a great opportunity for you. We understand that you might not make it to some of our games, and we're going to help Mom get the house tidied up at the end of the day. We're going to help get dinner on the table. We're going to help get the table cleared and the dishes done on those days that you can't be here to help. We'll make sure that homework gets started and that the little kids get in bed on time," and on down the line. And so it was an opportunity for them to demonstrate that they could pitch in, that they could help the family, and that they understood that this was an opportunity that was important, not just for me, but for our entire family. And so it showed them how to exercise prudence, to weigh out the best means of achieving a good end. And so it was a great opportunity for them to put that into practice. Another example is that I will introduce as a family dinner table topic interesting or difficult work situations that come up in the course of my day. So I said in a previous talk that I've been a manager for a lot of years, and I've had the unpleasant responsibility of having to fire people at times. Some of these situations have been great opportunities for family dinner table conversation. I keep the name of the person confidential and anonymous, but I talk through the performance situation of this individual who's working for me, talk about what I'm thinking, allow kids to ask questions. And so it's in many cases, because I as the dad am for the kids that bridge to that big mysterious adult world where people have jobs, where people have deadlines, important decisions, they can start to see how an adult weighs out the pros and the cons of particular situations and makes a decision. So it's a great exercise, I think, in helping kids understand how to exercise prudence. Okay, so those are some ways where we can help kids learn about prudence through just our role as a father. What about in how we parent? I think it's important that we avoid a false prudence, which can easily turn into a cowardice, avoiding real opportunities to be a strong parent leader, because I tell myself a story that this isn't the right time to lean into such and such difficult topic with my child, or to address so-and-so bad behavior. She isn't in the right mood. I don't want the conflict. Or ultimately, a rationalization that I think a lot of parents unfortunately make, even without realizing it. I'm afraid that bringing this up will make me less popular with my child, that she'll like me less. So I think we have to avoid that false prudence. Also, if we allow ourselves to be dominated by such thoughts, we can let a lot of opportunities go to help form our children in virtue. And over time, our kids can end up picking up on this, that dad will let things slide, or that dad doesn't have the guts to bring up the hard topics. So how we parent is an important way to help our kids understand the virtue of prudence. I want to leave you with one more aspect of my list of daily practices, and this too was suggested by a wise friend of mine. I try to check in at the end of the day on what went well and what didn't go well, what I need to emphasize more tomorrow, what I need to improve. So at the end of the day, I could check in on the virtue of prudence by asking myself some questions. Did I live and make decisions in a prudent manner today? Did I weigh the moral good in every situation? Do I live in a consistent and responsible fashion? Am I committed to cultivating good habits that help me towards the true good? Did I let opportunities go by that were a chance to help my children learn to exercise the virtue of prudence? So when I come to my answers on each of these questions, the things that I chalk up as wins, I'm going to double down on those tomorrow. The things that I didn't do so well, I come up with some kind of a concrete resolution for how I'm going to fix that tomorrow. I'm going to do better at that tomorrow. And then gradually, over time, I can build virtue in myself that I can then pass on to my children.
Hey, thanks for listening to The Dad Project. If this talk was valuable to you, please go to our website at dadproject.net and make a voluntary one-time or recurring donation to help support our operations. Any amount helps. Catch you next time at The Dad Project.